Welcome to the Michigan Golfer Show. Join us each week as we explore the people, the places, and the events that shape our great game.
Rolling.
Hi, I'm Jennie McCafferty, and I'm at the Michigan Golf Show. And with us is Paul Albanese. Paul, thank you for coming today. How are things with you?
Things are going great, Jenny. Appreciate you guys having me. It's nice to be here at the Michigan Golf Show again. This game come to this every year, and it's nice to see all the Michigan golf courses, and actually the Midwestern golf courses all coming to this show. So nice to be here.
Yeah, it seems to be bigger than ever, so it's kind of cool.
Yeah, golf's gotten a nice rebound, obviously, from the pandemic. Ever since then, we've all, everyone in the business has been doing a lot of fun stuff, and us included.
Well, speaking of which, what's new with you? What's happening?
A lot of good stuff. We're actually working on a project in Vietnam with pro golfer, the most famous Asian golfer ever, really, KJ Choi. So we're doing a collaboration with him in Vietnam. More locally, we're working at Fargo Country Club in North Dakota. We've got work in Seattle. We're doing a project out there on the peninsula in Seattle. We're doing work here in Michigan with Treetops up north. We're working with those guys to look at the Fazio course and how we can bring that back to its former glory. Lake Forest Golf Club right over here in Ann Arbor. We've been working with them for a year now on trying to put a nice par 3 course or a short game facility as part of their golf package, so that's pretty exciting stuff. Hunters Ridge Golf Club over there in Howell, one of the first courses I ever designed back in the day. They've asked me to come back in and look at some remodeling of that. So, yeah, we've been busy running around doing stuff.
Sounds like you're spending a lot of time on airplanes.
Yeah, I got some frequent flyer miles. That's always nice.
Well, the other thing that you mentioned, it seems as though the short courses or the par 3 courses really seem to be making a resurgence of some sort.
Yeah, we get a lot of requests lately for how do you, in many ways, how to take 18 holes and turn them into 9 holes plus a par 3 course. There's a lot of interest in having golfers be able to play or, quote, get their golf fix in a faster way, so you can do things like short courses and par 3 courses. So we get a lot of inquiries for that, and we're working on a lot of projects in that.
And something about a course near Lansing.
Yeah, we're actually working again. I've worked with these guys for a long time on many different occasions. Groesbeck Golf Club right in Lansing. It's a city course, and we're going to look at some different ideas for how to maybe do some bunkering out there, and they're going to be remodeling their clubhouse. So we've got different opportunities out there to possibly do some interesting things at Groesbeck once again. So it's kind of exciting to always go back to that golf course.
Well, par 3s are also a good way to get beginners going without so much humility involved.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. Par 3s, golfers love par 3s, and there's often said in the golf design world that that's the one golf hole where really you can beat a professional on a given day. So it's really exciting for golfers to play par 3s, and it is a great way to get beginners and people who don't know the game, how to introduce them to the game. So, yeah, I'm a big fan of par 3 courses.
Well, Paul, one of the things that I always think about when your name comes up is horses. And Christiana Creek. Can you talk a little bit about bunkers and horses and how that all came about?
Yeah, I'll go over that again, and thanks to you and Art back in 2000, a long time ago, over 15 years ago, we did that. And I've told the story to you guys and to many people about how we were doing these bunkers at Christiana Creek, which was an old William Langford design. And I had told my construction manager at the time that, these were built with horses, and so we're trying to make it look like that. And he said, well, why don't we go get some horses? And I said, well, if you do that, I'll get somebody to come here and cover it. And lo and behold, he got the horses, so I got Art to come down and cover it, and they actually put it in Golf Magazine as well. So you can go online to your channel and see some really fun stuff with regard to how to build a bunker with a horse. But the cool part about that for me is we've been doing a lot of Golden Age golf course design work. In fact, we're working at Dayton Country Club in Ohio, bringing back the Donald Ross style. We worked at Grosse Ile I've been working with them for 4 or 5 years now on bringing back their Donald Ross look and flavor. And that work I did with a horse actually gave me a good understanding of why bunkers from the Golden Age, the early part of the century, look as they do, because they were built with horses and they have a specific style and flavor to them that really you can only bring out with a horse. So it was an educational experience as well as a lot of fun.
Well, that sounds like so much fun. And you've been doing so many things, but one of the courses you worked on was Jerry Matthews' last course, Saskatoon, the silver course.
Yes. Yeah, we worked on this course called Saskatoon. It's a 9-hole course that we designed, but it's part of a larger facility, the Saskatoon Golf Club, owned by the Howard family. Pat Howard is now the guy that runs it. And Jerry and I, it was really a pretty cool story, I think, for Michigan golf in general. I worked for Jerry 25 plus years ago as one of my first jobs out of graduate school. And Jerry and I had always remained friends throughout our careers, and Jerry watched me do a whole bunch of stuff, including Sage Run and Sweetgrass up in northern Michigan, which I'll talk about more in a minute. But, I went my way and Jerry went his, and we stayed friendly. And then a few years ago, Jerry calls me and says, Paul, my old client, Bill Howard, wants to do 9 holes before he finally goes to the great golf course in the sky. So Bill Howard hired Jerry to do 9 holes, and Jerry didn't have the staff at the time. Jerry was pretty much retired, very retired at the time, really. So he calls me and says, we want to do this together. And it was an absolute blast to go back and work with somebody that helped me cut my teeth in this business and create a golf course together and watch our two philosophies mesh. And
A lot of this is mud and stuff because we're working it up.
Yeah.
If we hadn't done it in here, all the water that fell, there would be no water sitting here anyway.
Yeah.
We're doing it.
Well, they're not even saying there's a water problem right now. They're just saying in case.
Well, but we have some spots. He's right. We have some spots. And that's one of them. We're going to have to get rid of water.
And how big a pipe though?
8 inch.
8, 10. The 8's win.
I had my own way of designing a golf course, as did Jerry. But we were able to come together and have a lot of laughs, have a handful of Manhattans to help us get through the design process. And we created some really cool stuff on this 9 holes, so much so that it's actually been ranked as, according to somebody who just told me, that it's one of the unsung gems in Michigan now. It got ranked by some magazine or some poll. And I think you're going to see some more press about it considering it as one of the better unsung gems in the state of Michigan. And it was Jerry's last job that he ever did, and I'm really proud to have gotten to do that with him. And we're really proud that we did it for Bill Howard and the Howard family. Unfortunately, Bill Howard, who wanted to see it done, he did. He passed away before we actually finished the project.
Did he see it underway?
He did. He saw it underway. We actually have a pretty funny story about Bill. He went out to look at the 8th green when we were building it, and he went out and he took his old Cadillac, I think it was, and he went and he drove right over the 8th green, and he ended up down in the swamps, and we had to go over there and get Bill out, and he was old, so he didn't want to walk out there, so he took his car out and he ended up dumping his car into the swamp. So that was a pretty funny story we all told after that. And but yeah, it's a great property, something you should definitely see.
Since you worked with Jerry early on and later on, did you see changes in the way he approached building golf courses?
Yeah, I do. Jerry started to change his style and philosophy. I noticed that even when I worked with him back in the day, and I think I told this when I was giving an interview a few months ago about Jerry's passing, about how much we appreciated Jerry and how he let the younger designers like myself explore things. And as we explored and went different routes, you could see Jerry starting to change his design philosophy a little bit as well. So he did have an old school way of designing, and he liked to stay by his tried and true principles. But he did have that ability to see other people doing design and saying, that's not a bad idea. Let's see if we can maybe work that in. So yeah, I saw a little bit of that in him.
Speaking of philosophy, how do you define yours?
My philosophy, I'm always trying to be changing and different. I don't like to have just a signature style or a one way of doing something. I'll tell you that the signature process we use is to always be iterating, always be looking at different ideas, always try to do something a little different than you did last time so that you're not just doing the same thing over and over again and trying to create a new look, trying to have a new idea that you can integrate into a project, because we don't want to just create the same thing over and over again for 30 years, which we haven't. So that's been the key for our success to some degree, is that we're always being creative and always looking at something new, and that's what I'd say is my philosophy.
Meanwhile, the terrain is always different, so you have to somehow figure out how to apply some things consistently if the terrain is different. How would that work?
Yeah, well, a good example are the two projects I did up in northern Michigan for the Island Resort and Casino, the Potawatomi tribe. They've been fantastic with me. I've worked with them since 2005 when we first did Sweetgrass, and then they hired me to do Sage Run. So it was a great honor to be able to do both of those golf courses with them. And Tony Mancia, the general manager there, he's been great at allowing us to explore different ideas. And we often say in these type of interviews with the media that the two golf courses are like red wine and white wine. They were really different types of terrain, and I would be hard-pressed to think that someone could tell that the same designer did both of them, because they're very different in style and flavor, and that's a testament to the process I just described about how we're always trying to look at the terrain, do something unique, different, inspiring, and I think we've succeeded up there.
Well, one of the things I wanted to mention, and this goes way back, you went to graduate school at Harvard. Tell us a little bit about that, because I worked there for a while. So yeah.
No, that was a thrill. Honestly, I'll never forget how I worked hard at Cornell. I went to Cornell first, and then where I got an engineering degree, and I always call that the left side of my brain. So I got the left side of my brain involved at Cornell, and then one of my professors at Cornell did me a great, solid favor and wrote a nice letter of recommendation for me about more or less about how hard I worked, not so much that I was super talented. I just happened to work really hard for her. And she wrote a letter to Harvard and told them about me, and they let me in. And I'll never forget when I got in how excited I was, because I literally applied to them and said, I want to study golf course design over here. And it wasn't just landscape architecture, which was what the actual program was landscape architecture. So I got there, and the thing that I'm most proud of about going to Harvard is that I tailored my curriculum myself to study golf architecture while I was there. And a lot of my colleagues and even some of the professors, they looked at golf architecture as kind of that outlier of landscape architecture. It didn't integrate very well into landscape architecture. It was seen as kind of the black sheep in some ways as landscape.
Black sheep. Wow.
Because they saw it as environmentally non-friendly, all the things that you hear about sometimes in some circles in landscape architecture. But what I was able to do was to convince people there that, wait a minute, don't be, just because there may be a few bad apples in the bunch that might not be representing landscape architecture in a great way via golf design, we as a whole, the golf course architectural industry, are very environmentally friendly. We actually know a lot about landscape architecture, and we're looking to integrate the principles of landscape architecture into golf course architecture. And so my professors and my classmates, they all started to listen to me. And I would say I changed a heck of a few minds there by saying, golf architects are actually, way more evolved when it comes to design than they realized.
Let's get specific. What's an example of a principle of landscape architecture that applies to a golf course?
It's a great question. That's a good question. And I'll tell you what it is. When you take a golf course and you look at the design of it beyond just the game, like a lot of architects can design, a great games, a par 4, par 5 with strategy. And that's all well and good, and you will come up with a pretty good golf course if you design it based just on the game of golf. But if you start to look at the landscape and start to understand what makes it special about the context of where it's located, and then take landscape architectural principles about how to explore the different ideas of the context and how that inspires the aesthetic of the design, now you'll get a golf course that not only has great playability, but it'll have great aesthetics, and it'll feel like a place that fits into the landscape versus just something that was transposed onto the landscape as a game. And an example for me of how I've done this with some of my clients is with the Indian tribes. We've taken their history and their culture, and we've tried to understand that, and we've incorporated that history and culture into the design of the landscape. Now, the key to doing it well is to not do it in a Disney-like way. If there's a story about a turtle or a deer, you don't just go stamp a turtle or deer on the bunker. You learn, you try. It's like abstract art. You take that idea and you iterate it, and you try to explore how that can fit into the landscape, so that there's a story behind it. And that, I always like to say that people who play the golf courses I design don't have to even play golf to appreciate them. They can understand it as a really nicely designed, well-designed piece of landscape architecture.
That's pretty cool. So that would have happened in Harris, I imagine.
Yes, that happened in Harris up north. We took the stories, we designed some cool features and bunkers that are not, it's not real blatant, it's really subtle, it's like an abstract painting, but there's a story behind every golf design there that reflects the native culture and heritage of the Potawatomis.
Wow, it's such a beautiful course. I hope people get a chance to go visit. It's Island
Resort and Casino.
Island Resort and Casino.
Yeah, they've got a great package up there. I highly recommend people go to the Island Resort and Casino, not just for the cool designs and the good golf, but Tony Mancia and Scott Hero and the people up there have created a package deal up north that is like no other in the country. And I'm not just because of my courses. I've sent people up there and they cannot believe the amount of golf and lodging you get to have for the amount of money you have to pay. So it's completely worth it. My guys who I take a golf trip with every year now want to go back every year because it's a great trip.
Well, it's a beautiful place too, so.
It is. It's also, the UP is a beautiful place, no doubt.
Meanwhile, you're a member of the American Society of Golf Course Architects, and I think you have to have 5 courses that basically get you into that. Can you name those courses and talk about them a bit?
Yeah, I've been a member now for 20 years. To be a full member, it's 7 courses. To be an associate, it's 5 courses. And the courses I did were back, prior to my having my own company. They were Hunter's Ridge, Timberstone. I did one in Oklahoma. I did another, what's the other one? Birchwood Farms up in northern Michigan. 9 holes there was part of it. A great course in Rochester, New York called Mill Creek Golf Club. So those were my 5 courses. Wyandotte Shores as well. I did a nice 9 holes on the Detroit River. So those were my original golf courses that I did over 20 years ago and allowed me to get into the American Society of Golf Course Architects.
Do you go back to those original courses and wonder about what you thought then?
I do, and it's really fun to do that. It's fun to look at how your old design style has changed over time. So yes, I go back and look at it, and I'll go back and look at courses I designed in the last 5 years, and I always want to make changes. We're always like that. Like anybody who makes a movie, I would think, or does a piece of artwork, they're always looking at how they might tweak their design process a little. So I do that even on the courses I've done recently. But to look at the stuff I did 20 years ago, it is interesting to say, wow, I'm interested as to what I was thinking there, and I'll remember what I was thinking. And often I'll like what I've done, and then there'll be times where I'll want to change some things that I've done.
What's your favorite kind of terrain to work with?
I would say the best terrain to work with is not like we're working with in Vietnam, which is incredibly steep. I mean, in Vietnam, we're working with the steepest, most difficult terrain I've ever had to deal with. And I don't like working with flat. So obviously, and I think most architects would agree that gently rolling topography is really the nicest thing you can work with. And we're doing a project right now in South Dakota that's got exactly that terrain. It might be one of the nicest sites I've ever worked with regard to the ease of being able to build it.
What's the name of that one again?
The one in South Dakota is for the Flandreau tribe. It's a Native American tribe. We haven't come up with an official name yet. We've thrown some names around, and again, the name will probably be reminiscent of some of the history that's gone on in the Flandreau tribe.
What sort of things do you envision doing in the near future?
Well, we plan to expand a lot in Asia. I've got some people working for me over in Asia. We're working with KJ Choi in Asia, and KJ is obviously a great name in the Asian golf market. So we plan to expand over there. We've gotten, our construction management team. We actually work a lot now. We do the designs of our projects as well as work in the construction end of them. So it's really been a really nice thing to do, is to not only have design control, but have control over the construction, because there's a real, unlike building architecture and landscape architecture, working with the creator of the golf course, the person that's actually building it, it really allows for some interesting and creative things to happen, and it really allows you to save a lot of money too. So we've been working closely with our construction teams and our design teams to continue in that realm as well.
What's an example of a creative thing that happens?
Well, one of the things you can work with the shapers and the people that are creating the forms in the field, and you don't have to go through a process that would often not allow those changes to happen. So when you have your own construction team working on a project as the designer, you can say, you know what, I don't like the way that looks over there. Let's change that, move that over a few feet, or bring that down and do this. So there's not a lot of having, of another entity saying, well, that wasn't part of the design plans. Now we got to go through a rigmarole of changing. So to have your own creativity be able to happen on the spot is very beneficial.
In some ways, it sounds like it goes all the way back to that bunker at Christiana Creek.
Yeah, I mean, everything goes full circle in this business, I have found. So, yes, you can go back to exactly that type of process of building a bunker with a horse, and then the full circle of working with Jerry in the last few years after having started with him. So, yeah, I'm starting to see in my career a lot of things going full circle.
Well, Paul, it sounds like you're having fun, and it's been fun talking with you. Thank you.
Thanks, Jenny. It's always fun to talk to you and Art, and enjoy the show this week.
Thank you.